All right, EntreArchitect community, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, which means it's time for the EntreArchitect Context and Clarity conversation for Thursday, August 11th, 2022. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. As you get here, say hi. Let us know that you're here and let us know where here is for you. Where are you joining this conversation from? If we've never met before, my name's Jeff. I come here every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern for one reason, so that we can find clarity around the things that matter most to you, the architect. It doesn't matter if you're the employee of a firm or you own your own firm. Maybe you've circled a date on the calendar. You said 2022 is my year, and you're on the runway to starting your own thing. Or maybe you have owned your own thing, your own firm for a year or 7 years or 19 years, and you're starting to rethink or reimagine what that firm could or maybe even should be. All of the topics that we cover, one topic every day, they all fall under the broad umbrella of the business of architecture, and they're all the need to know topics for the success of small firm architects just like you. So thanks for joining us today, as usual, for these context and clarity conversations. I am joined by Katharine MacPhail. Hi, Katharine.
Hi, Jeff. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you here, and it looks like you're settling into your new spot in Massachusetts there.
I am. Yep. As I just mentioned, I just got an air conditioner, but now it's not. I don't need it, but I got it.
Cool. Well, I think all of Massachusetts is glad that you got that air conditioner.
Well, at least the audience of Context and Clarity are probably happy that I'm not.
Well,
I'm not dripping sweat today.
I'm glad you're not. I'm glad you're much more comfortable than you have been. Let's see. I see Scott Thrift. He's the first on the screen. He's joining us. He says, "Happy Thursday," from San Francisco, joining us on LinkedIn. Since he's the first in, he wins what we give away every single day for the person that's first in to the room, the John Kinney Memorial Crocheted Bathtub Award. So congratulations, Scott. Thanks for joining us today. Christian, welcome back from Ithaca, New York, and John Jones from Westport, Connecticut. Jefferson's also over there on LinkedIn from La La Land, from Los Angeles. Welcome back, Jefferson. Kurt is leading the charge from Twitch. He says, "Hello, everyone. Seeking clarity on code review." Okay, I'm not. I've totally abandoned any desire for code review. So maybe somebody can help you with that today. Let's see, Joseph Balskus, welcome. From Joe from Connecticut. Glad you're joining us. And Megan Dolly, hello from South Dakota. Megan, as would have it, she will be our Context and Clarity Live guest next week. Megan and I had a great conversation earlier this week. She's also going to be a speaker at the EntreArchitect Community annual meeting, the 1st through 3rd of November in Austin, Texas. So welcome, Megan. Glad you're joining us. Barry Reed, joining us from sunny. Is this the one sunny day in Scotland? Welcome, Barry. Glad you're here. Good evening to you. Mark R. LePage is listening via YouTube today. Looking forward to the next 60 minutes. Glad you're here, Mark. And Pam from San Diego, welcome back. And Wendy from Western Massachusetts, glad you're here as well. Great crowd already today. Glad that all of you are here. If you happen to be joining us, if you're on Facebook right now and you're watching this and you're commenting away and you're going, "Hey, why aren't my comments showing up on the screen like everybody else's are?" It's because you're in a private Facebook group and there are some privacy policies that obviously we adhere to. You have to give Facebook permission to communicate with Restream, which is the platform that we use here. So Katharine has put the URL in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Type this into your browser window, chat.restream.io/FB, like Facebook. A couple of clicks later, you'll give Facebook permission to let your name and your likeness and your comments out, and all of your problems, every single problem that you've ever imagined, they'll all be solved just by typing that into your browser window. So check that out, chat.restream.io/FB, like Facebook. All right. There you go, Christian. Thank you for putting that into the comments. So I'm guessing there's somebody out there that's going, "Hey, what's going on?" Chat.restream.io/FB. That'll solve the problems. All right. Are we ready? What have I forgotten at this point?
I think you've covered it. I think you're ready for the next big step.
Okay. Next big step. Well, we've got someone waiting in the green room, as usual, we have provided a big bowl of green M&Ms. However, the longer we take here, the less M&Ms are left in the bowl. I don't want the guest to run out, so why don't we just introduce them right now, and we'll bring them in. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while because this person I think is one of the great people in our industry, and this is going to be a really good conversation. So, our guest today has an entrepreneurial journey that spanned from bicycles on his parents' lawn to junkyard cars to used motorcycles to engineering firms to management consulting for architecture, engineering, and planning firms to being the entrepreneur in residence at the University of Arkansas's Sam M. Walton College of Business. For over 3 decades, he's helped architects, engineers, and planners start, build, and run better businesses. He's the founder and chairman of the Zweig Group, who I think many of you are familiar with. Mark Zweig, welcome to Context and Clarity Live.
Hey, it's great to be here, except the only problem is I wanted only orange M&Ms, not these green ones. Didn't you guys get that? I tell you.
Sorry, it's a supply chain issue. That's what it
Okay.
is.
All right. That's okay then, Jeff.
We can only get the green ones in time. Sorry about that.
I tell you, it's hard.
It is hard. Welcome, Mark. Glad that you're here. Like I said, I think you're
Hey.
one of the good guys of the profession, the good guys of the industry. I've been telling everybody all week that one of the things that just really impresses me is that especially over on LinkedIn, right? If you comment, if I post something on LinkedIn, or if there's a conversation going on in LinkedIn, it's not at all unusual for Mark Zweig to jump to drop into the conversation and share a lot of your experience and your wisdom, and that's always welcome. So I appreciate everything that you're doing for all of us.
Well, thanks. I'm not doing as much as I used to these days. The whole thing is slowed down for me.
Well, good for you. Good for you. That's not a bad thing. We all have seasons of life.
It's nice. I'm loving it. I don't mind getting old. I tell you, there's a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah, that's good. That's excellent. Well, one of the things I've been curious about this. I mean, I know some of the backstory of this, but one of the questions that came up on Clubhouse this morning when we were kind of doing a preview of what we were talking about, what we were going to talk about this afternoon, Christian asked, and actually, Katharine, I didn't tell you this. I dropped this into the comments. Christian asked, where did it go? There it goes. What does an entrepreneur in residence do? We're all fascinated by this new-ish title that you have, entrepreneur in residence at the University of Arkansas. What does that mean?
Well, I've been teaching there for the last 18 years, and started out as an adjunct, and then quickly I became a 3/4 time faculty member, and now I'm a full-time faculty member. And I guess the sort of idea behind it, my title used to be executive in residence, and I said I'm not an executive. I don't like that term. I'm not working for a mega corp out there and putting my suit on every day and battling my board of directors. I was an entrepreneur. I had 2 different businesses, one of them on the Inc. 500 twice, one of them on the Inc. 500/5000 once. The other got back on the Inc. list after we sold it and bought it and turned it around a third time. And I've had a variety of businesses, and so I'm not academically qualified. I'm what they call professionally qualified. And so I work with students. I mean, I've just got the greatest job in the world. I teach new venture development. So I have a semester where all my students are doing business plans for new businesses. And then I've got small enterprise management where they work with a small business to help that company improve, increase revenues, increase profitability, increase the value of the enterprise, and reduce the risk. So That's my thing. I'm dealing with students and dealing with real world problems, whether they be in a new business or one that's been around for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've been teaching that or teaching there for 18 years. You've been around the
Yeah.
AEC world or AEP world, maybe more accurately, for
Yes.
over 30 years.
42.
So 42. Okay. That's the
42
number.
years. Yeah.
I
That's
was,
it.
I was trying to do some
Yeah.
math, but I ran out of fingers. Um, so 42 years, you've seen a couple of
Mhm.
things change in time. I mean, I'm sure there's some fundamentals
Sure.
that are steady, but you've seen some things change when when this audience of small firm architects is
Mhm.
again, just like in the opening, I always say, you may be the employee of a firm, or you may own your own firm. We've had a number of people in this community start their own firms since COVID started, back in March of 2020. So if we think about business ventures, if we think about starting a firm or running a firm or looking at opportunities, what's different in 2022 than say 1990 or 1980, or you can go back as far as you want. What's different today that you
Sure.
see that we need to be paying attention to?
Well, I think it's easier than ever, thanks to the internet. You can be a real specialist today at something and export yourself for the globe, whereas that was much more difficult in 1980. Much more
Yeah.
difficult to be found. Firms, small firms, were much more often generalists. Not that many still aren't, but
Yeah.
certainly I think the preponderance of them were generalists because it'd be very hard to market yourself cost effectively like you can today as a small business. So it's easier than ever to start a business today. And I think that's one of the things that makes it different. I think another thing is that there's a greater awareness of the importance of business practices for these companies. I've also taught here as an ed. I taught a class called "Everything They Don't Teach You in Architectural School."
Oh,
Um,
we need that class.
so, and what don't they teach you? Well, there was a whole lot of stuff, but a lot of it's business stuff.
Right.
Marketing, billing, collection, managing people, all those things that I think there's a greater awareness of the importance of those today. When I started out in this business, the first firm I worked for as an employee, I started as a consultant in 1980 in a company that served the industry. And after 3 years of that, I got recruited to one of my clients, and I was hired by them to be the head of project development because they didn't even want to say marketing. That was like a bad word. My boss told me, don't say marketing. We don't market here.
Yeah.
Um, so it's
and and
certainly a
then and
lot
then you
different.
said sales, and then it was all over.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot different, in that regard. But I think those are probably the two primary differences. Of course, we have many different technologies we use today. I mean, everybody's doing everything in 3D and, on a computer. I mean, back in those days, it was, ink on linen and stuff. I mean, it's a completely
Right.
different era as far as how the actual work itself is done. But otherwise, it's not too much different. Architects, they sell their expertise, they sell their creativity, their professional service businesses. Um, you've only got so much time in the day. You've got clients that don't understand what you do, by and large, and why it's important. I just had yesterday, I had a meeting. I'm also a Vistage chair, which is a
Mhm.
CEO support group here. It's an international organization, but anyway, I have the two Vistage groups here in Northwest Arkansas. And one of my members is an architect. She's a woman. She's got her own firm. She's been in business maybe 5 years. She has, I'd say, probably 14 employees. And, we talked a lot yesterday just about the fact that, taking residential as an example, and inexperienced clients. Now they do retail and they do other things, but just, the clients don't understand the value that they bring to the project. And it's so, you still have a lot of ignorance out there, I think, in the general public. I'm building a new garage at my house here. I have an old Victorian house in downtown Fayetteville. It's a nice garage. It's got a loft upstairs. It's 28 feet deep. It's got a she shed area in it for my wife. That's what she calls it. But I had the building inspector over here to do the framing inspection the other day, and he goes upstairs. He looks at the ridge beam. He's like, "Oh, good. That's 2 inches larger than your rafters. They followed the code." He goes, "Oh, your windows. Thank God they're tempered." And all I could think to myself was, thank God I had a decent set of plans that actually had a framing plan, or it probably would have been screwed up. And I had it done by a friend of mine here locally who's a really talented residential architect, and she does a really good set of plans. And it's just, there's a great example of it could have gone wrong,
Right.
the whole thing could have been done wrong. And because I've got an architect who actually gave me a framing plan, lo and behold, we meet code.
that's that's important.
You know,
So 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 the conversation yesterday with the woman that's in your Vistage group, the firm owner
yeah,
that's in your Vistage group,
right.
how'd that conversation play out? I mean, what's the in what you're saying, of course, as you know, is has the hair on everybody's neck standing up, right? They're identifying with this.
Sure.
Is all of these things that you're saying have happened to everyone in the audience sometime in the last week and a half. Um, so what's the solution?
The
When you've got
solution,
a go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a really good question. The solution is we've got to be loud and proud and share lots and lots and lots of information. And so, just in the discussion with her, I was telling her, there are a couple architects here locally in Fayetteville that are pretty well known, and sort of, they've got their the attention of the local market, let's just say. And I said, she's not in Fayetteville, by the way. She's in another community here. And I said, they're every time I get on anywhere, I see them. They're in the business journal, they're on LinkedIn, they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They're just putting out tons and tons of content, and you're just not doing enough of it. And you know what her response was to that? I feel funny about that.
Mhm.
I'm not a braggart. I'm just self-conscious about that. I'm an introvert. And, I said, you got to change. It's not just bragging about your projects either. That's another thing. Whenever you start talking with architects about being more aggressive in their promotion, the first thing they think about is, oh, I've got to tell everybody about my latest project. But I said, there's so many other things you could do. I gave her an example of a retail store here that's so poorly designed. Every time I drove past it, it's a renovation of a furniture store into a hardware store. I've been driving past it for months and thought that they weren't open, and they've been open for like 2 months. But because
Wow.
they built all their display cases right up against the windows of the place, when you drive by, it looks like craft paper is on the windows, but it's really the unfinished wood at the back of the display cases. And this
Oh,
is a national hardware store chain. I'm like,
yeah.
I said, why don't you take something like that, go take a photo of it? They're never going to hire you. You know, why don't you just say, look, this is idiocy. This is a perfect example of stupidity and poor retail design. Um, you know, but I mean, I said we could drive around in subdivisions and look at houses all day, and in an hour I could find 50 things, and you could find 50 things were done wrong that are idiotic. Those out, you know. Of course, it doesn't seem natural to her to do that. But I said, you don't have to insult the people. We don't even have to say where it is. We can just point it out and say, look, here's an example of something that's really silly. And this could have been done a lot better. And this is what should have been done here. But, I think back on my own businesses, and, you can take the company that's Zweig Group today, or you can take Mark Zweig Inc., which was a design, build, development company. You didn't mention that in my intro, which is fine. But, we started that in 2005, and we made a brand for ourselves here. We were named the Developers of the Year. We won the Best Historic, Renovation, the Best Adaptive Reuse Awards, all these things. We were super aggressive with our marketing. We had really good signage. I was all over social media. I was writing letters to the paper. I was writing columns on, matters like what home improvements are really worth doing, and not just rehashing everybody else's standard advice either, and so, we got known. And as a result of that, we had the highest price area, and we could sell our stuff when nobody else was selling anything. So
I remember you talking about Zweig Group, and I forget exactly what the numbers were. I forget exactly what you said, but I remember you saying something like you were sending out press releases, like 3 press releases a week or something like that,
good memory.
which
Yes.
resulted in, I mean, it was just, I remember listening to that. I think it was, I think it was when you were talking with Mark on the EntreArchitect podcast. You were talking about the number of press releases that you sent out, which
Right.
resulted in just huge press coverage, huge number of articles. And, I was listening to that and I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, at some point it's law of averages. I don't know if that's exactly the right term.
Exactly.
But it's
no.
Yeah.
The statistical probabilities play out. It's the same reason people own casinos and are in the insurance business. Yeah. So you have a good memory. We were sending out 3 press releases to a list of about 500 names a week. So 3 different press releases, 500 editors and publishers and media people. And the result of that is we got 15 to 20 articles published every single month. Now, if you look at that, that's something like 6,700, 6,800 possibilities. So 15 or 20 out of that is like 0.25% hit rate. So that's 1 out of 400. Now, most people would say, if I told architects, you got to send out 400 press releases to get one published, they go, oh, good Lord. I go ask them, like, how big is your press? Do you get any press? Well, we got 1 article in the Business Journal after we bought an ad. I go, that's not really an article. But it's like, what's your press list? We got 20 names, or we got 50 names. Well, forget it. We send out 3 press releases a year to a press list of 50, and we wonder why we don't get anything. Well, the odds are you'll get 0.25%, and that's if it's good. It's got to be newsworthy too. It's not, we're pleased to announce we've just completed the 212,000 square foot XYZ office building featuring 6 32,651 square foot floor plates. I mean, it's like boring as hell. Nobody cares. You gotta get people excited. You gotta, threaten the status quo. You gotta challenge. Just like I wrote an article on LinkedIn for the Zweig letter last week. This week it came out, and the title of it was "The 7 Habits of Highly Ineffective People."
Yep.
Okay, because everybody acts like that damn book is some kind of a Bible. Okay, which it's not at all, and it doesn't apply to these small companies that are listening today. You should be a level 5 leader. You're not charismatic. You're an institutional leader. Get real. Okay. The those companies were all multi-billion-dollar old businesses, 20, 30, 40 years old with tons of inertia. It just doesn't apply. But my point is, you got to be controversial. You can't just say what everybody else is saying. And you've got to establish your expertise by sharing your insight. And sometimes, again, I'll take the architect I spoke with yesterday. He says, well, some people may not like that. I said, no problem. Some people will really like it. Okay. That's all we care about. Just because somebody doesn't like it doesn't mean it's not good.
Well, someone's always not going to like it.
Right. Exactly.
So no matter what you do. Yeah.
We used to have that problem years ago when we sent out tons of direct mail at Zweig Group, the company that today's Zweig Group. We'd hire people, and I'll never forget, I had this one architect hired in our DC office. He was a business marketing guy, but he was an architect licensed. And he calls me up one day, oh, we've got a problem. One of my clients said that we're sending out too much mail, and he throws it right in the trash. We need to slow down on the direct mail. I'm like, are you out of your freaking mind? Have you looked at your paycheck lately? The only reason we make the money we make here is we send out, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pieces of mail every single month out of this place. And for every one of those that gripes, 50 people buy stuff from us. I'm so thankful I was a TA in marketing research, which is heavily statistical based, when I went through grad school, because it's all about probabilities.
Yeah. Well, I'll mention every once in a while a book by Jeb Blunt, which is, what is it, Radical Prospecting, I think. And he's big on the numbers, right? And
Sure.
Some of my favorite lines from the book are, listen, the work that you put in or don't put in today will manifest itself 3 months from now, right? Depending on what you're selling and so on and so forth. But you're putting stuff in the pipeline. It takes a while for it to come through. So are you doing the work today that's going to make it come out of the pipe in 3 months or something like that? And he gets into the, some of the statistical things, and just like you are. And I think that's a lot of us are missing the boat on the marketing business development side in that way. If you were to think of maybe the 3 to 5 things that small firm architects, let's play it both ways. 3 to 5 things that small firm architects are doing wrong, and then we can do 3 to 5 things that small firm architects are doing right.
Well, I love talking about what's wrong. Yeah, no. Okay. Of course, we've already talked about the marketing. I mean, it's the typical, we get some possibilities, we get some big prospects, and we slow down, on that, because what if we got all of it? We couldn't do it all. Worst mistake you can ever make. Okay. So they all do that. The second thing is they don't act like, and again, I'm generalizing, not all do these things apply to. Of course, there are some that don't do these things, but many do not create a workplace that other people would actually want to work at. I always say, would you work in this firm? You don't pay well. Your environment stinks. It's dead. It's like a morgue in here. You're a dictator. Nobody gets to make any decisions but you. Nobody has any information but you. So, that's bullshit. You need to create a completely different environment that's going to attract smart people who are highly motivated to actually work there. Because when you do that, your job's easy. They're figuring out stuff you're not going to figure out. Okay. And that was always my idea. But I just see this time and time again. I'll say to these people, you got to pay better. You got to have a better incentive plan that's not just subjective. You at the end of the year deciding if you have any money left over and who's going to get how much totally subjectively. Why not have a cash basis bonus plan that every month we make a cash basis profit, we pay X% of it out to everybody here. And if you're here, you get it. Well, what if somebody doesn't deserve it who's here? Then they shouldn't be here. Okay. Then let's either reform them and make them so they deserve it, or run them out and get somebody else in here. I mean, if they're here, they should get their share. I'm a huge believer in open book management. I'm a huge believer in sharing information. There's not enough information shared. Everybody's kept in the dark, and I think that's a huge problem. And people. The marketing's bad, the environment's bad. They're not sharing information. They're not. They don't have the environment that attracts good people. They're not sharing the information that they really need to share, that gets everybody understanding the sort of financial dynamics of the business. All anybody sees is, oh my God, you're billing me at 150, but I make $40 an hour or whatever. How is that fair? Well, here's how. Okay, we'll explain where all the money goes in this place. Those are, I think, some of the primary problems. I mean, if you want to talk about small firms, they're not investment oriented. They're trying to maximize their personal income. They're letting their architects tend to be very bad at this. They live beyond their means. They strip out their company, and there's no capital left to hire anybody or grow.
It's hard to keep up with all these.
Overhead.
Strip the company.
And their accountants are advising them to do it.
Yeah.
It's this mentality that, the business exists for your personal benefit. And of course, if you go back to the old days, we can talk about the Frank Lloyd Wright using his interns like slaves. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen some horrible things in companies. One, the principal was in a loft area in the building that had no bathroom, and he urinated into a Lancer's wine bottle.
What?
And made the interns take his bottle.
You're kidding. That is awful.
I'm not kidding.
That's too much right there. That's too much. I draw the line at that. That's
not. So, I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things they're doing wrong.
So don't do that. Don't do that. That's something not to do.
On the list. It's on the list.
Yeah, but
okay.
And then go on, Katharine. I'm sorry.
Look, Christian wants to know if you actually say these things to people who ask for your help. Like, do you actually say this place is a morgue, your atmosphere stinks, and stuff like that? Yeah. Do you say it that way, or do you, sugarcoat it?
Sugarcoat it.
No, the reason why, I don't want to say the reason why I was successful. I was successful for a lot of reasons. I had, white privilege at my back. I had really good people I worked with. I mean, so there were a lot of reasons, but no, I didn't sugarcoat it. I told people what I thought they needed to hear, which is why I was able to get good fees and maintain a loyal client base. Not everybody likes that. I mean, there were some clients that didn't like it, and that's fine. We had plenty of other ones because we were doing all the stuff that we needed to do to keep the phone ringing and the emails coming in. So, again, I mean, marketing wise, my theory's always been you need to drive demand beyond your ability to supply it. It's only then that you will be selective about your clients and work for people that you think will listen to you and will pay you reasonably well.
Okay, that would be really good, like on a bracelet, but it's too long. So drive demand beyond my ability to meet it.
Yeah, that's actually
fundamental.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. So, okay, that's a pretty good list.
Then you can be honest.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about, when we talk about marketing around here, we talk about your ideal client a lot, and it's really hard, to your point, if you have 3 clients, like 3 things in the pipeline, and you need 4 things in the pipeline, it's really hard to plant a flag and say, hey, I'm only going to work with ideal clients, especially when only one of
Sure.
those 4 is ideal. So I think I think that's a really great point. So that was quite a list, everything from a wine bottle and
I
beyond.
can't believe that. I can't even believe that, because I'd just
That
love to
is
be able
true.
to unsee that. My whole night's going to be me thinking about that guy, because that must mean he's in this
It's
loft going and like peeing into a bottle while people are
yeah,
behind him or
yeah.
wherever.
You
Gosh.
well, they're all downstairs.
I don't know what
I
to
don't
say about
know.
that.
It's horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's making all my hair stand up. I do not like that story.
So what are things that small firm architects are doing right?
Yeah. What are we doing right?
Well, I
Maybe
mean,
a
I
short
think
list.
obviously, no. I mean, the technologies that people are using that really help inexperienced clients or people who just can't visualize things, when they see elevations or floor plans, those tools are great. I mean, I think we can do things quickly. Good small architects can very quickly come up with concepts that they can share with their client to get them excited and to sort of very early on establish some concurrence on what it is that they're trying to do with the project. That in the past, I think a lot of times it took a lot longer to sort of get to that point, where you find out whether or not you're in sync with them, because we just didn't have the ability to communicate and effectively with the tools that we have today, the ideas, the vision, the concept. So I think we're doing that a lot better. I think some firms are certainly using some of the free marketing avenues that are out there, such as social media, podcasting, video, and other things, tools that are available to them to market themselves. Excuse me. Um, so some firms, I think, are doing a very good job at that. Um, I think maybe there's a greater awareness that when you hire young people, you have to give them some variety in their experience. Whether we're talking about interns or newly graduated. They're not architects yet, but what we can call them designers. Um, I think we're doing a better job understanding the fact that people want to learn on the job. They don't want to just be told what to do and just draft. So, I see more young people coming along to project meetings or in meetings. I see more, willingness to let people take on roles maybe at a younger age than traditionally would have been the case in this profession. So I definitely think we're doing that better. Um, those are just the things that come to mind quickly.
Yeah,
I mean, we're
I like
still
that.
doing a lot of stuff. We could still be better. I mean,
Oh, sure.
obviously, there's a zillion firms out there, and they could all most could improve. So
Yeah, that'll always be the case. Um,
yeah.
as we look forward from, here we are just past the middle of 2022, and there's a lot of rumblings about downturns and slowdowns and things like that. What don't architects? What are some things that architects don't know that they don't know, that they need to be looking out for as we head towards 2023 and beyond?
Well, first off, I just want to say that just because there's a recession, even if there is one, and I'm not convinced that there's going to be personally, I think there are a lot of signs that say there won't be a recession. Yeah, we've got interest rates went up, but they're creeping back down, and inflation's already going down. job market's unbelievably strong. The housing inventory is super low. You know, there's a lot of positive things out there. But so my first thought is just because there's a downturn in the economy does not mean that you need to go down. That's number one, because you can grow and everybody else can go backwards. There's a huge market out there. You have a micro percentage of it. So, you know, you can do well and others may not. That's the first thing I want people to understand. I think the second thing that these architects need to understand, and I've witnessed this many times. I mean, you know, I lived in Texas in the mid 80s. After I worked in Texas in the early 80s when it was a boom. I lived there when it was in decline. I, you know, was in New Boston area in the late 80s, early 90s when we had the you know, the savings and loan meltdown. You know, I was in the development business and selling houses in 2007, 2008. So I mean, I've seen it all, and you know, I think the one thing that people don't understand that they need to understand is specialization is the key. I think a lot of people feel like it, and I'll never forget, I had a client years ago. You could say they weren't a small firm. They're a very well known company, okay, in this business. Had a great reputation. Um, at the time, they were doing maybe $11 million in revenue. They had 7 different market sectors that they served. Everything from parks to development to higher ed to resort hotels. Okay. So when we started looking at their markets, what we found was, and I broke up. I what they didn't have their revenue characterized according to the market sector, so I had them do that. Well, at the time, they were doing about 55 or 60% of their work with resort hotels, and the rest of it was in these other categories. The worst and smallest sector was ecotourism. Okay. Then I looked at the marketing expenses on these things. And it was interesting. The marketing expenses were the lowest for the biggest market they served, which was resort hotels, and they were the highest as a percentage of revenues with ecotourism projects. And I said, okay, here's what we need to do. We need to just like cut off everything in the bottom 2. We're spend $0 on those. We're going nowhere. Take all that money and throw that into the number 1 sector. And the, you know, the response of the principals of this firm was, oh my gosh, that's going to be so risky. What happens when the resort hotel market tanks? We're going to be screwed. You know, we don't want to be that dependent on the resort hotel market. And I convinced them to do it, and they did grow their resort hotel market. They became fabulously profitable. At their peak, they hit 60 million in revenue, which is pretty unbelievable. And they had the highest profitability of any firm I've ever seen in this business. So, you know, and when the recession hit in the resort hotel market, which it did after 9/11, you know, everything stopped. You guys remember that. We're all old enough to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no travel. You know, you know, we're going to go down the shitter. Didn't happen at all. The resort hotels had to get a lot more competitive, and they needed to make changes to make their facilities more attractive to people. They started spending more money on them to get people there, not less. And it set the stage for a whole new period of prosperity in that company. So, what happens when recessions hit is the dabblers get thrown out of the market. I don't need to hire somebody because they're the only ones I can get to do the job. I can get the real thing. The real thing is always going to do well. Okay. And there's always needs. You know, may not be the same thing. I mean, you may not be doing new stores, you may be doing rehabs, or maybe you got to shift over to do warehouse distribution, or maybe you've got to, you know, build some expertise in something else that you don't have right now that they need, like interiors or whatever. But the buyers, the market sector, which I define as a group of buyers with common wants and needs, not a project type, it's a client type. They've always got needs, you know. Be the best for them. Be the ones that they associate with their industry. Be known to them. Be part of their fabric, and you'll be fine.
Yeah,
You know?
that's great advice. It's really good advice. Christian wants to know if you've written a book, and you've written 1 or 2 or 13. What do you have a favorite title amongst the books that you've written?
You know, I'm not going to say don't buy any of the books I've written, but I mean, you know, I'm not sure they're the best representation of my work. I have a new book coming out called
Okay.
Confessions of an Entrepreneur. It's written,
Yep.
it's at the publisher, it's completely copy edited. The pages are laid out. They're doing an index for it. The cover's designed. It's coming out on November 1. It's not just for our industry, but I think it's probably the best I've done of this type. So you can get that. I've also got Management from A to Zweig. There's several of those that are still
That's a good one.
still available. You know, they're just not, the content's good, but the organization and readability of it is nowhere near what it is in this new book.
Got it.
I think
Got it. Yeah, I
people
saw your
would,
post the other day about the new one.
yeah,
So November 1st, you said?
November 1st. It's coming out by the
Okay.
U of A Press. It's available right now to order, but fortunately, they hooked me up with a fantastic editor who
Nice.
made my life easy, and he's a great guy, and really helped extract the best of what I have and sort of weave it together in a more coherent way than anything we've done before. So,
Yeah,
but
Okay.
nobody reads
that's great.
anymore. So let me say that if you buy a book, you're going to be, and you actually read it.
Well, what about, are you doing an audio version of it?
Not anything planned right now, but we should.
Maybe
You know,
Jeff can read it for you. He wants to
Yeah,
read.
I'll
You
read it
guys
for
could.
you.
Jeff's got a great voice. I tell
He
you,
does.
I
He
want.
does. I'd listen
I'll
to him
read it
read
for
me
you.
your book. You know, if you
Yeah.
do that.
That'd be fantastic. We
Yeah,
need to
let's
look
talk
into
about it. I'll
that.
do that for you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be awesome.
that
Because
would be
that's
awesome.
we talk about that some here on Context and Clarity, because the amount of research that goes into each guest, and we also do a book club and things like that. I'm listening to books all the time, so I don't even know
Yeah.
what the little symbols mean anymore. I can't read, so I just listen. So yeah, we've got to find a way to get it on Audible for you.
Mm.
But I tell you, I will say that's so refreshing. My wife and I, we went out to New Mexico for the third summer in a row. We got a house in Santa Fe, and just being able to sit out on a lawn in Taos and read all day is like the greatest luxury. I can't tell you how satisfying that is, you know?
Mm.
But but I'm into fiction. That's really the book I really want to write is a novel, and it's going to be a Horatio Alger story about a design professional who, is his whole life and what he goes through. Um, so I've got the basic plot mapped out. And
Does
I've
he kill
actually done
someone
some of it.
in the book?
No,
No.
there's no kill. There may be some killing. There may be some sex involved. But I've got to keep it interesting. But
Yeah.
it would be based on this industry, and I think it would be fun. But I enjoy the fiction honestly more than I do reading business books. So
Mm.
That I can understand. I'm looking forward to that book. I want to know when
I,
the publishing date is for that one.
there, there's a really good book out. You could say it's architecturally related, but it's almost not. It's called The Architecture of the Arkansas Ozarks, and it's written
Okay.
by a guy named Harrison Hardgrave, and it's fiction. And it starts out with two early settlers of Arkansas in the early 1800s, and they create this town called Staymore. And it's like the evolution of Staymore and the houses that they build over time. And the people who live there are called stay morons.
That's a good one too.
It's really good. It's a great book.
That's architecture of Arkansas
The
Ozarks.
Arkansas Ozarks. Yeah, it's really
Okay.
it's really good. They sort of weave the whole thing around the house that they build, and why they're configured the way they are.
Wow.
And
okay, I'll check that out.
That one sounds fun too.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I know that you have a hard stop, Mark. You've got important things that you have to do. What what do you have coming up? I know you're teaching. I know you've got the book coming out November 1st. What do you have coming up that you're really excited about beyond that?
I'm. This will sound crazy to you guys, but I've always been a car guy, as Mark LePage knows. Had a lot of cars. I'm gotten into air-cooled Volkswagens lately. So, what I'm excited about is I bought a 1960 Bug. I've got three Beetles right now in various stages. One's done, one's almost done, and I've got a 1960. I'm going to do a total restoration on, pull the body off the chassis, and I'm very excited about that. My biggest problem, I've got a great place to do it. A friend of mine is offered to give me some unbelievable, fantastic air-conditioned space with lifts and tool, everything. But I don't want to leave home. I like being able to work out of my own garage here. So I may have less than perfect facilities and just do it here at the house. But I like seeing things get done.
Yeah.
I just looked at an old gas station today. I'm thinking about buying, and maybe I'll throw my VWs over there. It's like 5 blocks from the house, which isn't too far to go. So I like, I think it's missing in a lot of people's lives. It's just seeing the tangible something be improved. I think it's why a lot of architects like to paint, for example. They want to see something. It's gratifying. See it actually done. You can hold it in your hand. And
Yeah. That makes sense.
So
that's true.
I'm not trying to accomplish any great things anymore, other than work with my students and be a decent parent to my 5 daughters. It's really and decent husband. That's my priority right now. I feel like one of the benefits of aging is that you can put your ego aside. At least it certainly is in my case. you know, and there's something to be said. That ego can drive you to succeed in certain ways, but it can also really screw things up in your life and your relationships. And so I'm feeling like, there's just other stuff that's more important than trying to make a lot of money or build high growth businesses at this point in my life. But of course, it's easy for me to say that because I did that, and I'm harvesting the benefits of that, so I've got some options that maybe I wouldn't have if I hadn't done that. But I'm just not that materialistic at this point or achievement oriented. I want the relationships are where it's at, and the tangible creativity,
Yeah. That is wonderful. And speaking of that, you have someplace you need to go. So we're gonna let you go and say thank you. This is a fantastic, fun conversation. So thanks so much for spending an hour with us, Mark. We really appreciate you and everything that you're doing.
That's been wonderful. You guys are great hosts, and I think you're have a noble endeavor trying to help out this audience the way you do. And I'm sure they appreciate what you're doing for them.
Yeah. Well, this is our community, and they have built this. They've given us the ability to have this conversation. So, we're very grateful to them for this, and to all of you out there. Thanks for coming along this ride with us. Thanks for all of your comments and questions over there. on the screen. We appreciate that. Just real quickly before we wrap up here, next week, I mentioned at the beginning, Megan Dolly is in the audience. Megan will be our Context and Clarity live guest next week. She's a virtual CEO and the creator of Keep More Profit, and she'll be a speaker at the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting down in Austin, November 1st through 3rd. If you need to know more about that, go to entrearchitect.com/annual meeting. 2 words, smash them together like they're one word, entrearchitect.com/annual meeting. There you go, lower left of your screen right now. And you can find all the information about that event. So with that, again, thanks, Mark. We really appreciate you. Everybody out there, thank you. Absolutely. This has been fantastic. Everybody, please be well, stay safe, take care of yourself. Find a little bit of time to breathe, relax, find a way to rejuvenate. It's a long game. We do this every day. Thanks for going along the journey with us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.